there can be a numerous things that we can do which can support our being and becoming. There are a lot of good things that we can do. Then why Sree Sree Thakur for our being and becoming?
So only when we strive for a higher ideal that we are able to become idealistic. And that higher ideal needs to be in the form of an anthropomorphized man. It cannot be just be something abstract. It cannot be something that is out of thin air, right? Because you need to imbibe anthropomorphic qualities within you. You are yourself a human being. So the qualities that pertain to you are actually humanistic qualities, anthropomorphic qualities. So you need to look towards an ideal who is in the form of a human being in order to imbibe those qualities.
In our modern days, or in the matter of fact, that science is always about facts. Spirituality largely deals with faith.
So I don't see any distinction between faith and reason. I don't see any distinction between faith and fact, because one is born out of the other.
We see our Thakur introduced a very interesting thing to us, that is Acharya Parampara.
So they have both combinations. They have the nature and as well as the nurture within them to act as Acharya, or the representative of Sree Sree Thakur's ideology, or our living ideal, as we commonly call it.
Welcome to Satsang Europe's podcast show. Today we have a very, very special guest with us, the man of science and knowledge, Dr. Arijit Biswas. He is a research scientist and a group leader at the University Clinic of Bonn in Germany. Today we have talked and tried to understand Sree Sree Thakur from scientific aspects. We talked about connection between science and spirituality, being and becoming. We also discussed about Acharya Parampara and Satsang Europe. Hope you all will enjoy this episode. Welcome Arijit Da to Sastang Europe's podcast show. I am really thrilled to have you here with us, and getting a scientist himself in our show is nothing less than a bliss for me, and I'm quite sure for our viewers as well. So how are you doing and how are you feeling after coming this show?
First of all, thank you for inviting me to this show. It's a pleasure to be part of this podcast. I'm good. I hope you are also doing well.
Yes, definitely, and thanks for asking. As I told you, I'm really thrilled to have you here. So, Arijit Da, yeah, I was a bit nervous when I thought that I would do it with you, because the man with your stature, it's easy to listen. I can spend hours by sitting and listening to you, and I have done it quite a. I would say that I have got the opportunity of it to listening to you, but when it comes to the discussion, I feel it's a bit difficult because of the depth of the knowledge you have. What I thought, normally in our show, what we do, we start it in a very slow pace and little bit chit chat. But with you, I didn't want to get here and there. I just want to grab every opportunity of learning. So, directly coming to a question. So this is the question that always came in my mind. I know you are a generation wise satsangi. So you are not the first generation. Your parents were satsangi. So, and there are a lot of satsangis who are first generation satsangi. So being a generation wise satsangi, did you ever feel that it's a bit easier for you in this journey of quest and to know Thakur, or it's a similar, like you have to start your own journey like other ones who are just getting the first generation satsangi? How is it?
Well, before I answer that question, I would like to address the word that you use, which is basically the term that you use, that is satsangi. I would not only compartmentalize myself or people who follow Sree Sree Thakur Anukulchandra as satsangis, because if you go to the root word or the etymological root this word. It's, that it's basically comes from Sanskrit. It has roots in Sanskrit, and you can split the word into two parts. That is Sat and Sang. So basically, Sang means to associate, and Sat is basically anything that aligns itself to our existence. That is something that contributes to our being and becoming. So anything that by association that expands my being and becoming, that contributes to my being and becoming, can be categorized as the particular term satsang or satsangi. Since we are human beings, we anthropomorphize this concept in another human being, and that's why we usually refer to another person as a satsangi. But I think the term that you might like to refer to is a disciple. So I think what you want to say is that a generational disciple, in comparison to a disciple who has got acquainted with Sree Thakur Anukulchandra only during his lifetime.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, so, uh, well, the difference is actually, the answer to this question is actually a little bit difficult, frankly speaking. That's primarily because you realize that even Sree Thakur says that we all are different in all sorts of varieties and diversities, right? And all our journeys, life journeys, are also different in various aspects. To compartmentalize it into people who have got acquainted with Sree Thakur Anukulchandra during their lifetime or through their lineage, through their generations, uh, it depends on the primary motivation that's underlying that acquaintance or that surrender towards that great master. Uh, Again, the difference might, I mean, there is no easy answer to it. There is no way to say that since I am a generational satsangi, it's easier for me to align myself to my master, my guru, Sree Thakur Anukulchandra, and that, let's say, another person who has got acquainted recently with Sree Thakur Anukulchandra, it's more difficult for him. That does not hold water. I don't think so. Uh, because from my experience, and I can only speak from my experience, I can tell you that even though I have the discipleship has been passed through generations, of discipleship of Sree Thakur has been passed through generations to me, the actual realization of what Sree Thakur is, the 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 intensity of that realization is something that does not develop just because it has been passed through my lineage. I think somebody who has just got acquainted recently with Sree Thakur might have the same realization within a month or so.
Of course.
Again, I'm coming back to the original point. It all depends on the motivation with which we surrender to Sree Thakur Anukul Chandra. When it's passed through the lineage, actually, I remember when I was initially initiated, I was 11 years old, and there is a process of initiation which you are also quite aware of. But at that time, most of what my my relationship with Thakur was primarily mechanical,
Okay.
and there was no primary motivation for me to follow him.
Mm-hmm.
But I did everything mechanically, primarily as a cultural upbringing that I had through my parents. Uh, if you distinguish this from another person that who actively seeks out Sree Thakur Anukulchandra in his lifetime and surrenders to him, I think the motivation is much, much stronger and much, much spontaneous and organic in that case. Because if I refer you to one of the sayings of Satyanusaran, where Sree Thakur says in Bengali, অভাবে মন ব্রহ্ম জিজ্ঞাসা করে। It's
অভাবে
only
পরিশ্রান্ত মনি ব্রহ্ম জিজ্ঞাসা।
অভাবে পরিশ্রান্ত মনহি ব্রহ্ম জিজ্ঞাসা করে, which basically loosely translate into English as something like it's only out of want that a person seeks the universal truth, right? Now, one might go into a little bit more details that we all are always wanting something, right?
Of course.
We are, as somebody who has, let's say, somebody who uses a public transport wishes for a car, right? Somebody who has a car maybe wishes for a better car. Somebody who has lots of car maybe wishes for a jumbo jet or for a private.
Actually, no limitation of desire. It's
Yeah, so
always
there's no
limitless.
limit for desire, but
Exactly.
I think that this is not really the want that Sree Thakur is referring to, that brings us to him. I think this want, this urge to seek the higher truth or the higher ideal or the universal truth, that is what really contributes to my being and becoming. That urge, that motivation, I think, when ignites in a person, that actually determines how he surrenders and how he realizes Sree Thakur in his lifetime.
Of course.
And that can happen just like this in a spontaneous moment. And that can also happen through generations. It takes time, even for somebody who has been passed on the discipleship of Sree Thakur through multiple generations, and still maybe it takes him his whole lifetime to even realize a little bit of what Sree Thakur stands for, what Sree Thakur represents.
Of course. So basically, Arijit, what I understood from you and what I feel also, there is a positive sides in both the way. Like when you are a second generation or third generation disciple of Sree Thakur, you inherit those faith, those devotion, or actual at least the uh, way or the things that we need to do. You normally do. So that sometimes uh, can take you closer to him. Or when you are first generation disciple, it may be you can start with a fresh perspective, like you are not inheriting anything, all you are doing by yourself, so you can start afresh and you can get a new fresh perspective which can lead you to Thakur more fast or faster. So that's
I,
what
I,
I
I
understand.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, in a sense, that is what it is.
Mm.
But I think this discrimination or this distinction is actually completely non-relevant. It's,
Of course,
I
yes.
think what is relevant is that what is relevant is basically
Mm.
the realization and the surrender that you understand at the core of
Mm.
what Sree Thakur is, and you try to imbibe Sree Thakur in your own life. And it's only through imbibing Sree Thakur within one's own life, within one's own action, within one's own thought processes, does one realize Sree Thakur Anukulchandra.
Of course.
So I think it's just this distinction is just a semantic. I think what lies at the core of surrendering to him is basically the realization,
And
and
basically it's everyone's own journey.
everyone's own journey. I think, that is one of the fundamental things that is so attractive for me in many of Thakur's sayings and concepts, is that all of us are so incredibly diverse. Forget about as individuals how diverse we are. If I look at my cellular composition, each and every cell of me is also a diverse form of the other cell, right? So it's not that even within, let's say within a tissue, let's say your kidney, even within the kidney, the different cells that form a kidney, they might be genetically different from each other, because we have a concept which is known as somatic mutations that uh, discriminates as one cell divides into two cells divide into three. So we are uh, we are a cornucopia of, diversity. And I think uh, evolution is fundamental to something like this. I mean, to creating that kind of a diversity, and to recognize that diversity and to accept that diversity while surrendering to Sri Sree Thakur. I think that is part of our realization journey.
And that actually reminded me one Bengali term which we often use to our Sisi Thakur, Boishishtopali Apurayoman. It means like he um, completes everyone according to their qualities, not changing them.
Yeah.
So yeah, one interesting thing that I found, and actually it brought me to another question. You told that Satsangi is kind of like the thing that supports our being and becoming, right? Which helps in our being and becoming. So that brought to me in another thinking, like there can be a numerous things that we can do which can support our being and becoming. There are a lot of good things that we can do. Then why Sisi Thakur for our being and becoming?
Well, Sisi Thakur, the point is that uh, we use the words quite loosely, right? We say being and becoming, right? My existence and my propagation, or my expansion, right? But truly, do we understand what is at the core of our existence and our expansion? Do we understand that or not? Because our understanding of what that is based on our experiences during our life, right? So when I am born, I look at my mother, I fall in love with my mother, and I think she is the source of my existence, right? And eventually, my mother acquaints me with my father, right? So she's the one who tells me that this is your father, right? And that's how I get to know both my mother and father, right? And then I look at them as my source of existence.
Correct.
But as my brain develops, as I come face to face with my surroundings, as I go to school, I start to see specific facets of life which I understand that aligning with them or understanding them or experiencing them are also critical to my being and becoming. For example, I need to learn mathematics, I need to learn physics, I need to learn chemistry, I need to learn how to behave with other people, right? And this comes again through a lot of other teachers. So initially, my teachers are primarily my mother and father, right?
Yes.
At a very nascent stage. But as I progress to school, college, my marital life, that my teachers keep interchanging, right? So I have a teacher for during my school, I have a teacher in college, I have a teacher even during my family life. I have specific teachers who they can be in the forms of my relatives who tell me how to conduct myself in my family life. How should I be an ideal son? How should I be an ideal husband? How should I be an ideal father? Uh, so coming back to your question, I think I all the time keep deviating from the
No,
primary
it doesn't
question.
matter. It always relevant.
But coming back to the original question, so do we have someone, or do we prescribe to an individual, or can we identify an individual who can be an all-encompassing guru or a teacher? Somebody who through his own life has demonstrated not only how I should get educated, how I should earn a living, what kind of a living I should earn, but everything, all facets of my life which are relevant. I think only when this kind of teacher is found, then I think I really begin to address the question of being and becoming. Before that, I think I am looking at being and becoming very reductively. It's only when I find such kind of a teacher that my brain expands and accepts the true essence of being and becoming. Now, you might ask me that why do you need a teacher? I mean, nature itself is a teacher, right? Nature itself teaches. I mean, uh, if you I mean, let's take the example of playing football, right?
Yeah.
You watch on TV how people kick a ball, and how they dribble and go past others, and you know how they play football. So obviously you can say that I can learn that just by looking at it. But in order to excel, you need to look at the one who is excellent,
Correct.
right? So so only by actually training under or imbibing the qualities of somebody who is excellent at football, let's say a Pele, Maradona, or even somebody who is like your coach at your school, who has been excellent at it at that particular game, will you truly become excellent yourself. So only when we strive for a higher ideal, that we are able to become idealistic. And that higher ideal needs to be in the form of an anthropomorphized man. It cannot be just be something abstract. It cannot be something that is out of thin air, right? Because you need to imbibe anthropomorphic qualities within you. You are yourself a human being. So the qualities that pertain to you are actually humanistic qualities, anthropomorphic qualities. So you need to look towards an ideal who is in the form of a human being in order to imbibe those qualities. I think that fundamentally answers your question as to why Sree Sree Thakur only. Because for me, when I study about his lifetime, his actions, his empathy, his compassion towards people, how he lived his life as, just like I said, just as a father, as a son, as a fellow human being. I see basically a higher ideal. I see a superior being. I see an idealistic person to which I want to strive to.
Of
That's
course.
why, from my perspective, I think in order to imbibe being and becoming within myself, I need to surrender to this kind of a guru, or Sree Sree Thakur Anukulchandra.
Of
I
course.
hope that answers your question, even though
Yeah, yeah,
I
that clarifies a lot of things, and yes, definitely it answers a lot of things. So yes, and see, there is actually one thing that came in my mind when you told that seeking the way of being and becoming. Like, I was thinking like why it is important to seeking the way of being and becoming, because by laws of nature, while we are growing up, by seeing our surroundings from our parents, we generally grows an perception like what is good and what is bad, what is wrongdoing or what is right doing. And don't you think that if we just follow the right doings, it will organically supports or automatically supports our being and becoming? Or it won't, it can support but it won't be able to lead us to that excel or that excellent that you are talking?
Well, uh, that brings into the question of how you are addressing this whole question actually of uh, you said that why should we actively seek out such a person, right? That's what you are asking. Why do we not do a simple hit and trial,
No,
right?
I'm not telling that, like, as I told, that we already grow a perception of right doing and wrongdoing from our parents, from the nature. The law of nature already teaches us, which is a general perception of right and wrong. So don't you think just if we follow those right doings or do something good, that will help us in our being and becoming, or we actively need to seek for being and becoming, and seeking to being excel in that?
Well, there are many facets that come into the answer to this question. First of all, is what is the extent of my foresight,
Of course,
right?
that is very
How,
limited.
how that's limited, yeah. I mean, uh, so for example, for me, I do not know what I will be doing tomorrow. I just have a vague idea what I will be doing tomorrow. But I do not know tomorrow. It might rain outside, it might snow outside. I might not be able to go and do my job that I have planned all along. So I do not have that foresight. I do not have the sensitivity to develop that kind of foresight, right? But there are a lot of people who are sensitive enough to do specific aspects. Like if you talk about sensitivity, let's say a person who is a weatherman or who is a weather forecaster or who is basically a natural weather forecaster can actually look at aspects of weather and predict what's going to happen tomorrow, right? And then he can determine his work path accordingly. But if you look at it in a holistic sense, my foresight is very limited, right?
Of
So,
course.
and the second thing is, even though, as you said, we slowly and slowly develop our perception of right and wrong, it's often clouded but by what are we call as complexes, right? So selfish complexes. So if you do not aspire to a higher ideal, you are always self-centered,
Right.
right? You do not think about other people. It's only when you aspire to a higher ideal that you start thinking about other people as well. Like
That's
Sisi,
our natural tendency.
yeah, that's our natural tendency. So our complexes, and you know what the complexes are, lust, greed, such
Yeah,
things like this. So our complexes always uh, poke us to, feed our own self.
of course.
And because we limit ourselves to only our own individuality, that's why that I think one of the reasons we do not develop that kind of a foresight. It's only when we aspire to a higher ideal that we try and understand, or we develop the understanding that we are just a part of everything that is surrounding us, and that if we as individuals do not contribute to what surrounds us, I think there will be no growth for myself only. So that is I think one of the reasons why we do not always, just simply go by our right and wrong understanding of uh, as we develop it, as we grow. Then again, the concept of right and wrong is also it's also very challenging, because there comes a time in life that you are not allowed to do a hit and trial.
Of course. And
Uh,
it
we, we,
sometimes
are,
become
we
very subjective also. This right
very
and wrong.
subjective, very subjective, and also we are not allowed. Nature does not sometimes allow you to do this kind of an hit and trial, because of course right now we live in an advanced society, we lived in a protected society. Think about our ancestors, let's say Homo habilis, or who from whom we have actually evolved as Homo sapiens. They were in surrounding environments which were extremely antagonistic to them, to their what do you call, to their existence itself. So at that time they could not, do a simple hit and trial.
Of
They
course.
could not say that, okay, maybe if this mammoth is approaching me, maybe I will do a hit and trial. Should I go and stand before him, or should I flee from that particular scene? So that's not permitted, because if I go and stand before a mammoth and it crushes me, I am finished. I'm done for. Then my existence is extinguished. So I do not learn anything from that, right?
Of course.
So that's why I think, because the uh, nature does not really select weak individuals, right? Nature only selects the strongest of strong individuals. And the only way to become a strong individual is to align yourself to the strongest individual.
Of course.
And strength, when I say strength, I do not mean strength in terms of, physical strength or even mental strength. There are so many aspects of our existence in which strength uh, can be seen. So forbearance itself is also a strength, right? So to have patience is also a strength, right? So uh, again, coming back to the same point, I mean, if you want to survive, if we want to overcome the challenges that nature presents us, our surroundings presents us, we need to aspire to the strongest of
Of
strong.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah, that clarifies a lot of things. Yes, definitely. Arijit, the interesting thing is, in my last to last question, when I was talking with you, you brought up that mathematics, chemistry, physics, and that again reminded me that you are a man of science. And in our modern days, or in the matter of fact, that science is always about facts. That's our conception, that science is about facts. And the thing that we are dealing with, like when we are going with Sree Thakur with this journey, we call it is our spiritual journey. And spirituality largely deals with faith. And in our current days, what we see, there is a huge conflict between fact and faith. uh, yes, of course, that may be our low understanding or some reason, or maybe that's right, wrong, I'm not sure. But there is a conflict in our current days, and that we can see everywhere, that faith and fact, they always fight with each other. But when I read about Sree Thakur in my very small journey, he always wanted to see things or analyze things in a scientific way. He himself was a doctor, so he always tried to talk or tried to analyze things in a very scientific way. But again, when we talk to the people, it always comes that conflict again, that okay, it's a spiritual journey, I am a man of science, I believe in facts, and spiritual journey deals with faith. So they are not quite a bit acquainted with it, or they don't try to understand. So how do you deal with it? Since you are a man of science, I guess you are the best man to talk about it.
Well, from an external perspective, I would simply tell you that I do not deal with the external perspective. I'm less bothered as to what other people do. I am more bothered about what I understand or what I do, what my actions are. Uh, Now coming back to the distinction, the distinction that you imply, that is basically faith and fact.
Fact.
So a lot of people who are, let's say, atheist or self-professed atheist, they they put them apart, faith and fact. So they say that the fact is a product of reason, rational, whereas faith is blind, right?
Of course.
I would like to completely disagree with this, actually. Faith is not blind. And I will come to that, why faith is not blind. And I mean, there is a type of faith which is blind, which is blind faith, but let's deal with this later on. But let's first talk about faith and reason, right? Faith, the term, if I'm not wrong, comes from the Latin word fides, right? And fides essentially means to believe, right? So you are employed, right? What do you work? I mean, what is your profession?
I'm a software engineer.
You're a software engineer, and which company has employed you?
The company named DNB. It's a bank.
Yeah. So they have put their faith on you, right? Do a specific work.
Of course, but based on some background check and the resume that I have put.
Right. But what did I say? I said that they put their faith on you.
Of course,
But
yes.
how did this faith come about?
Based on some facts again.
Based on some facts. Now I will tell you one Thakur's couplet. The ladder of faith through which one can reach step by step a desired extremity may be called reason. Actually, Thakur completely reverses the analogy. Thakur says that, when I said that faith, the original word is fides, and it basically means believe. What do I believe? What do I really believe? I believe that this water will quench my thirst, right? Why? Because I have drank that water and I have experienced that this is needed for my survival. That's why I believe that this water will quench my thirst, right? That's why I have faith in this particular water. So there is a cause and effect that is demonstrable, which is why I have faith in this particular water. So true faith does not come just out of thin air. What I think many of the atheists refer to is actually blind faith. Blind faith is something like, I have fallen sick. I I instead of relying on medicines to cure me, I start to have some kind of a weird understanding that some God in heaven will cure me. That is blind faith. And what is it basically? What is it basically coming out of? What is it? What is the primarily source of such kind of a blind faith? It's basically weakness. Some kind of a complex, underlying complex, where you really do not want to do the job, where you do not really want to be active and simply want things to be done for you. That is the weakness that is underlying blind faith. So I don't see any distinction between faith and reason. I don't see any distinction between faith and fact, because one is born out of the other. So if I have faith in something, if I have faith in, if I assign one of my students to a job, to do a particular job, that's because I have faith in his abilities. I've seen what he can do. That's why I have faith in him, right? There is no scope for superstition. There is no scope for blindly following some weird set of practices in order to develop faith, right? So faith is always fact and reason based. In fact, faith is what leads us to, as is implied in Sree Thakur's this couplet that I specifically mentioned, this proverb that I specifically mentioned. Thakur says that actually reason emerges out of faith. The rational emerges out of faith,
That's a
because
interesting thing.
we live in different planes of thoughts, right? Everything is possible in our lives, or everything is possible in nature. Whatever you think is possible. Now I might dream I'm all of 5'7" right? But I might in my dream think that I am 6 feet tall. So that does not, so when I wake up, it does not mean that I become 6 feet tall. But there is a plane of thought in my thought process, a reality in my thought process where I'm actually 6 feet tall. So there are these uh, concepts of multiple dimensions, right? Now, in physics. So time is one of the dimensions itself. If you have seen the movie Lucy, I think you will identify with this concept that time is a dimension. So we live in basically in 3 dimensions, right? X, Y, Z. But time is also another dimension because time is also passing by.
Of course.
What I was yesterday, I am not no longer today, right? But then there can be so many other dimensions. There is the dimension of my dreaming. There is a plane of thought. I may not actually be 6 feet tall, but in my thought process, in my plane of thought, that is my reality, right?
But that's not the actual reality.
Yeah, actuality you did. That's because you are determining the actuality.
Ah,
When you are dreaming, it's very much real for you. And who is to say that our existence itself is not a dream, right? Who is to say that, right? So we live in basically everything that you see around is relative. So the theory of relativity propounded by Einstein is not only limited to physics. It's a theory that applies to practically everything. Everything is relative. The only thing that is not relative is the universal truth that we want to survive and we want to expand, the being and becoming, which is the at the core of everything. Yeah, so I do not see any distinction between faith and reason. And the funny thing is, basically, the people who call themselves atheists, there is the term Gnostic in being. I think it's a Sanskrit term, which I mean that's the Sanskrit term for atheist, for an atheist. But if you split up the Sanskrit term Gnostic, na asti means I do not exist. So a person who says he's a Gnostic, he is basically trying to say that I don't exist. Whereas, which is actually then completely going against his own logic. He
of
exists.
course.
Otherwise, how can he think? If you do not exist, you cannot think.
Of course.
So, so I mean, if we simply imply faith by meaning, to rely on some deity, or to rely on some abstract thought, something that is intangible, that is not the faith that I correspond to. My faith, or the faith that Sree Thakur Anukulchandra talked about, was never abstract. It was something that I can touch, feel, understand, imbibe. So that, I think, is actually faith, and true faith. And faith, what the faith that Sree Thakur Anukulchandra talks about.
Of course. So what I understand from you is like faith and fact, they never oppose each other, while they always go hand to hand. One comes
Absolutely,
with another,
absolutely,
always.
absolutely,
And that's what a Thakur also said.
absolutely.
So yes, so since we talked a lot about these scientific things, I wanted to take you in another way, in another question, which actually lead to the first question that I asked, that generation wise disciple of Sree Thakur. And regarding that, I have one more question for you. Since you have come through a long time with this journey, with the journey with Sree Thakur, with Satsang. So what I understood, like, uh, I know you were back in India there, and you got all those things from your parents. You saw them, you learned from them, and then you started your own journey, and you are doing that. But when it comes to your next generation, who they are as you are in Germany, so they are in Germany, and that means they're in Europe and they're growing up in a European culture, which is quite a bit different from the Indian culture. So, how do you think that one can pass this faith, this devotion to their next generation uh, in this European culture when they come from another culture? So, how they pass to their next generation?
Well, I think your question first uh, implies that this culture is remarkably different than our own culture, right? That's what
Uh,
you.
Not really. I wanted to not. I didn't want to mean like that. What I wanted to say, like, see, it's not like that we are following Sisi Thakur. That's enough. That is not enough. We have to pass it to other people in order to grow all around. Like everyone needs we it, as our Thakur said, it's not just you who will being it's not just your being and becoming. You should support your surroundings being and becoming also, and to do that we have to pass this baton of uh, spiritualism, this baton of Sisi Thakur ideology. We have to pass it to the next generation. What I'm trying about European culture is, I'm not telling that it's remarkably different, because as you said in my last question, like everyone wants being and becoming. That's the very core of their existence, and that's the universal truth. So I believe in the European culture, American culture, you go any culture, there is that concept of being and becoming. So but when I what I'm telling, like how you got this baton from your parents, it was quite a bit in different way because you were back there in India. But your child who is growing up in the European culture, they are seeing different perspective, a different perspective of culture, different perspective of life, even different perspective of worshipping. So how do you will pass this with you for to your child?
Well, there are two ways of doing it, to my understanding. Is one way is to actually teach, and one way is to actually do.
Okay.
So if Thakur had a very famous proverb, you are for the Lord and not for others, you are for the Lord and so for others.
Yes.
If my son sees that my love for him has its origin or has its source in my love for Sisi Thakur, then love for Sisi Thakur will spontaneously originate from within him as well. So I think it's more important for me as to how I am surrendered to Sree Thakur Anukulchandra rather than how I how I actively preach or teach my son how to do this. Of course, uh, like any parent, I would like to give him certain basic my cultural practices and habits that I got from my own parents. But Thakur had also once saying that he said, coercion does not bring love.
Okay.
Right. So you cannot, even if he is my son, I cannot. And learning at the root of learning anything or adapting anything is primarily love for that particular thing. So even if we talk about surrendering, or if you to Sree Thakur or becoming a disciple of Sree Thakur, uh, at the fundamental core of it is to develop love for him. And let's not also confuse love with physical love, right? Or I think love has love is more relevant for with the concept of doing, right? How what you do for Sisi Thakur. Now you might say that Sisi Thakur is no longer in his mortal frame with us, right? So for what how should I do for Sree Thakur? Well, the doing is basically to change myself, to imbibe Sree Thakur within me, in my actions and thoughts, like I said before. So that is my expression of love for Sree Thakur. How I change my own, how I overcome my own complexes and passions and desires. Uh, and I would not also say simply desires, I would say my dysregulated desires that pull me away from my being and becoming, those desires, how I overcome them by aligning to Sree Thakur's principles. That is my expression of love for him. And when that expression of love is consolidated within me, my son, being my genetic bearer, it's very natural that it will emerge from him as well. There is, because Sree Thakur says that within each of us, there is everything that has been provided. We are the sum of our genetic component and our environment, right? So essentially, whatever is needed to counter our environment, to to win over our environment, to make the our environment also conducive to our being and becoming, is has already been provided within us. But in order for, so that it does not stay dormant within us, so that it blooms within us, I think that's why we surrender to a higher ideal. And when that surrender is complete, that realization is complete for myself, and this is an active process, this is not something that I think happens just in 1 year, 2 years. It could also be my complete lifetime will be spent doing this.
Of course.
But the fact that this process is ongoing, and the more aligned I am to, the more I love him, Sree Thakur Anukulchandra, I think the more organically love for Sree Thakur Anukulchandra will emerge in my next generation. I don't think any amount of preaching, you know, any amount of ritualistic, forcible uh, teaching will align him to Sree Thakur Anukulchandra. Eventually, it boils down to my own actions that will determine what my next generation will do or will be.
And I guess it's a very continuous process, like never ending.
It's a continuous process. I mean, of course, then I'm start to talk about metaphysical things, because like Sri Krishna said to Arjun that Arjun, you have been here and I have also been here before. But the difference between you and me is that you do not remember. I remember everything about myself, and I also remember about you. So, so that's the point. I mean, it's a continuous process. It might, it will last my lifetime. I'm pretty sure it will last my lifetime. And maybe if I'm born again, this will cross over to that as well,
I understand.
within my lineage or external to it.
Of course, yes, that is. Now you brought that topic of Sri Krishna. So, as we all know, whoever has been a little bit done a little bit study about our history or our spiritual stuffs. So there are a lot of prophets, and with those prophets, there are a lot of those spiritual organizations. But we see our Thakur introduced a very interesting thing to us, that is Acharya Parampara. So, can you just put some light on that Acharya Parampara and how unique it is, and how important it is in today's life?
Okay, let's look at it this way. Again, I go back to something like a practical example, right?
Of course.
So let's talk about football only again.
Mm-hmm.
Pele is considered the universal sort of the guru of football, right? He's considered the most complete footballer ever to have lived, right? I mean, other people had skills. Maradona had skills, of course. Platini had skills. So uh, the current generation, Ronaldo, they also have skills, right? But he is supposedly considered the most complete footballer ever,
Yes.
right? But and I want to excel. Let's say I want to take up football as my profession, as my means of living, and it's my passion. I love football, and I want to be excel as a footballer. But Pele is not no longer around,
Yes.
right? So what possibilities exist that I can approach someone who will guide me towards the kind of excellence that Pele had. So I will have to pick obviously somebody who is a more or less a representation of how Pele used to play football, right? So I will have to look within the what do you call, within the football fraternity, a coach who I see that is sort of a representation of the skills that Pele had, right? So Acharya Parampara is something similar to it. So Sree Thakur is no longer in his mortal frame anymore. So we need still, because we do not prescribe to uh, as I said, we are human beings. We need to relate to only another human being, right? We cannot learn from out of thin air. We cannot learn from the God that exists in heaven. We have to learn from another human being how to conduct our life and living. So that's why I think Sree Thakur Anukulchandra has left the Acharya tradition within us. So at this point of time, as you also know, that his great grandson, Sri Orkoditya Chakraborty, or whom we also call as, or we fondly call, respectfully called as Sri Sri Acharya Dev, is our current Acharya. So he is the genetic lineage of Sri Sri Thakur Anukulchandra. That means he has a genetic predisposition. He has a genetic predisposition to align to what Thakur's ideology was. But there is a difference here. Uh, why he is an Acharya is not only because of his genetic predisposition, but through his genetic predisposition, he is also a realized individual, fully realized individual, because he has trained under his own father, who was the Acharya Dev before him, Sisi Dada, whom we fondly refer to as. And Sisi Dada had trained under his father, Sisi Borda, right? And what does this training mean? This training essentially, basically, I told you about the process of realization, right? So this same training is basically the process of realization that is passed over through generations and generations. And since they already have within their blood the genetic proclivity or the genetic predisposition to imbibe this kind of a training, that's why they play the role of Acharya. So they have both combinations. They have the nature and as well as the nurture within them to act as Acharya or the representative of Sri Thakur's ideology, or our living ideal, as we commonly call it. Does this sort of answer your question?
Yes, of course. Yeah, it clears a lot, and I hope it will clear a lot of doubt for our viewers as well, because we always curious about this Acharya Parampara. And yes, definitely. And yes, what I feel also, like, as we cannot see Sisi Thakur in his mortal form. So we can see, or what I can tell, that we can feel him throughout Acharya. Whenever we go to him, whenever we do some sit around him, listen to him, it feels somewhat like whatever Thakur told. Because as I am in my age, I have never seen Thakur in his mortal body, and so do you. But we have read whatever he told in the books, and somewhat when Acharya Dev talks, it feels like there's Thakur himself is talking within him, from
Yeah,
him.
so basically, what he you see Thakur's reflection in his behavior, right?
Exactly.
In
Yes.
his acharan,
Yes.
right? In his acharan, in his conduct, rather. I would not say only behavior, but in his conduct.
Mhm.
And Acharya, I mean, Acharya can also simply be even a school principal in Sanskrit terms is known as an Acharya, right? But he is an Acharya not of a limited subject. He is an Acharya of Sree Thakur's ideology, Sree Thakur's ideal, right? So he is the Acharya of the subject of being and becoming.
Of course. And I guess Thakur gave this Acharya Parampara so that we don't get devastated, or our we should, I mean, to keep us concentric. Because if we don't have something in our center, we cannot be concentrating or revolve around that, right? We'll just get
It's a very,
scattered.
very, very, very basic fact that if you have ideology, Sree Thakur had that ideology, right?
Of course.
But an idea is bound to be corrupted in due time if it is not integrated with the ideal. So there
Exactly.
has to be a living ideal that the idea is always bound to, the ideology is bound to. Otherwise, my own complexes through generations or through within the lifetime as well, twist that particular idea to suit myself and not to suit my real being and becoming, actual being and becoming. So I think that's one of the reason that Sisi Thakur has kindly left us the tradition of Acharya Parampara, or has we see the interplay between father and son
Of
in
course.
Acharya Parampara. That how we see how Sisi Borda was in apprenticeship under Sisi Thakur, and how Sisi Dada was in apprenticeship under Sisi Borda, and how our current Acharya Dev was in apprenticeship under
Sisi Dada.
Sisi Dada, to develop, to bloom into the magnificent Acharya that he is today. So
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. As we thought, and as I knew that it would be a very uh, knowledgeable session, and that's how it is going. I hope our viewers are also enjoying uh, learning, enjoying and learning all those stuffs from you. And we come to a almost end of our show. So I just have two more things to ask you. I hope it could run a bit longer, but we have a limited time slot, so we have to finish it. But I hope we will get you again to learn again from you. So I just wanted to know, because you were in Europe from long time, long before this Satsang Europe formed, and so you were the witness of the birth of Satsang Europe and the whole journey that Satsang Europe is doing, starting from his when this thought came that there can be a Satsang Europe, and then Acharya Dev's blessing came. His he wished of this to get this formed, and then it happened, and then it's going. So how you are uh, feeling of being a part of it, and how you are seeing this journey of Satsang Europe?
well, I think this again leads me back to the idea of or the concept of satsang itself. even during Thakur's lifetime, I don't think Thakur, uh, and I know this for a fact that Thakur did not really wish to create an organization or a formal sort of a congregation. I think Satsang was the spontaneous result of the congregation of people who surrounded him out of love for him. Uh, now that we are currently in Europe, I think we satsangis or guru bhais and guru bons. I am contradicting my own use of terminology, but anyways, we guru bhais and guru bons, we have a tendency to always seek out actively another guru bhai and guru bon, because because of discipleship towards Thakur, we connect with each other like-mindedly.
Of course.
So I think that was also one of the reasons I think that this particular Satsang Europe organization was formally consolidated, and of course this emerged out of the wish of our Acharya Dev, Sri Acharya Dev. But again, this highlights, or the uh, fundamental drive that underlies this organization is also empathy, right? Sisi Thakur had one of the thing that attracts me to Sisi Thakur is massive empathy for everything that surrounded him. He had such he was driven by such strong love for everything around him. And I think we are just fortunate that our Acharya Dev at this point of time, because I think he sensed something, and I cannot speak for what he sensed because his plane of thought is
Yeah.
far, far above my plane of thought. But I think he sensed something. He sensed that a gradual weight was being accumulated here, that developing it into an organization will help us to connect with each other empathetically, and also to create a fertile environment around us to motivate other people to know, to accept, to understand Sisi Thakur and his concept of being and becoming. And through this journey, this is the journey towards the formation of this organization has been extremely enjoyable. And the fact is that it's actually, I am enjoying it even more after the formation of the organization. And I think uh, all of us, whoever is enjoying this connect with each other, we will keep enjoying it as long as we stay aligned to the fundamental ideology and to keep loving Sisi Thakur. I think that is what is more important
In
than
the
just
core,
the
it's always the
organization.
love for him.
Yes, I think the organization in isolation is irrelevant.
Of course. Yes. Yes.
If it's not
Logically.
connected, just like if I am not connected to my higher ideal, I am irrelevant.
Exactly.
So same thing, it works also for the organization. If the organization is not connected to the higher ideal, it's not connected to Sisi Thakur, it does not pertain or to follow the wishes of our Sisi Acharya Dev, then I don't think this is relevant, and I don't think we will also derive joy out of it.
Of course, because if there is the connection gets broken, the harmony will get broken, and then
Absolutely.
the whole organization will be irrelevant. And
Absolutely.
also, what I
So far, I am enjoying it.
that's nice to hear. And also, what I felt like after the formation of Satsang Europe, which it helped in a very large way to kept the satsangis. There are numbers of satsangis who are scattered in all over the Europe, brought them under one umbrella. We do prayers together, we do congregation, seminar, so everything's together. That brought us all together, and it's day by day it's just growing and growing, and I hope it
Yeah.
will continue
One
as
of the
long as you told that it will get connected to the center.
one of the roles of course is that we all of us are in different countries. You are in Norway, I am in Germany, some people are in Italy, some people are in Holland, and so and so. So being in a relatively foreign environment, we might have this feeling of loneliness. So that it serves as a channel to connect. In a sense, what I'm saying is that Sree Sree Thakur serves as a channel for each other to connect to each other, to empathize with each other. Uh, but we also have a higher duty. We also have a duty to spread the sweetness in the environment that we are in. So to enable people who are maybe not aware of Sree Sree Thakur Anukulchandra, aware of not his ideology, to become aware of it. So that's also one of the driving principles of this organization.
Of course.
This
And
this can happen. This can happen through active service. This can happen through cultural practices, singing, dancing. This can happen through many. And you already know that there are so many activities that are conducted by Satsang Europe, which could be educational seminars, or which could be basically food service, or helping the disadvantaged. So all
reminding that today also it happened a big food service in
yes,
Netherlands.
yes. So all this is oriented towards uh, there is I mean, I hope that I am not coming across a cult inducing individual. So it's just out of because because I have tasted the sweetness of what Sree Thakur Anukul Chandra is, that I want to distribute that sweetness in my environment as well. So I think that is the driving principle of our organization, and I'm enjoying it thoroughly. Yeah.
And Satsang Europe's first ever annual Utsav is just around the corner.
Yeah.
11th May it's the date. So are you excited, and how are you looking forward to it?
Well, Utsav, if you again coming back to the term Utsav, Utsav is basically, Uts means fountain, right?
Yeah,
Something comes
that's
upward.
the interesting thing. That's what I always thought, that whatever the topic I will bring, there will be something learning from you. And here again. So yes,
So Utsav, to have us, Utsav is to be Utsamukhi, means to be always, my spirit should always be upwards. It should be always expansion. Like Sister Thakur said, contraction is rejection, expansion is delight. So it's always should be expansion oriented. And I need to do whatever that is needed in order for my spirit animal to expand. Right. So Utsav is part of it. And I think within the Utsav, we have, as you know, we have going to have a very interesting symposium that talks about the connection between artificial intelligence and emotional intelligence. And I'm actually very much looking forward to listening to different viewpoints on this, and to see how it connects to Sree Thakur Anukul Chandra's ideology. I am also looking forward to the food, of course, being a foodie myself.
of
And of course, to the cultural singing and dancing, which are, of course, part of the joy of life. Joie de vivre, like one says in French, like the joy of life. Yeah.
of course. And I'm looking forward to meeting you all in person again. Because being in Norway, just a whole northern part of Europe, and you all are in Central Europe. Yes, it's a bit far. So yes, I'm really looking forward to meet you all in person. So yes, thank you, Arijit da. Thanks for your timing and thanks for joining and thanks for enlightening all of us, me and the viewers, with your knowledge. So and yes, there are a lot of things that cannot be that could not cover today, and I hope to see you again in our show and again just throw some light of knowledge on us.
I just wanted to say the enlightenment that you talked about. The I mean, enlightenment. If you take the central term and light or from the enlightenment, uh, in the night the moon shines and shows us the path, but the moon does not have a light of its own. It's basically reflected light from the sun that shows us the path in night, right?
Exactly.
So whatever light that you are getting from me is the good that is reflected out of me, that has comes out of me through imbibing Sree Sree Thakur. So the original source of light, the original source of good within me is Sree Sree Thakur Anukulchandra,
Of,
nothing else.
of course. And I completely agree with it. And whatever the good that in us, you, me, and of us, it's like how much we love him based on that. So yes, thank you, Arjita, for joining. And I hope I will see you again in this show and you have enjoyed thoroughly. So thank you. Jai Guru.
It was a pleasure. Jai Guru.